session of Let Us Talk It webinar. And everybody who has joined in on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, we welcome you. And thank you so much for taking out time to spend this 1 hour with us. And we hope that you benefit as much as possible. And if you think that it might, trust me, this will be an interesting webinar. So if you can forward the link to your friends, family, colleagues, I think they will benefit as well. This is a knowledge sharing platform. We hope that we help the community in some way or the other. And we hope that you too take a part and, as I said, forward it to your friend, family, or you can participate also by joining in the Zoom link, or you can even add your comments, feedback, questions in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook. So with that, we begin our topic today. Our topic, very important for the day, is Peak Performance Success Blueprint, the 5 core steps necessary to realizing your true potential. And we all have it. It's just that we sometimes do not even realize that we have it. So with that, we have to present this wonderful topic. We have with us our speaker today, Rory Peters. And he is a peak performance success coach, a keynote speaker, and the author of 2 books which help people who say to themselves, I am capable of doing much more than this. Yes, it's a very strong sentence, I would say, if we take it to our hearts. And while we were talking before the session started, I think he is in the right place because he was an IT instructor for 10 years. He was an MCSE over 3 operating systems, CCNA, and every certification CompTIA had at the time, including Security Plus, which was definitely over 15 years ago. But since then, he has been managing training departments, teaching SaaS-based emergency notifications and SaaS-based purchasing systems. Rory is also creating a membership site that he will be telling you about at the end of his presentation. So he is basically a teacher at heart, and he does this as his passion. We are so honored and thankful to have you, Rory. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, I guess depending where in the world you are, which is kind of a cool thing to think about. Welcome to the Peak Performance Success Blueprint, the 5 core steps you must master to become your absolute best. Now notice what I didn't say. I didn't say to become the best. I said to become your best. The first step in becoming the best is to become your best. In order to become the best, you first have to become your best. And that's what the focus of this is. I learned a long time ago that if I want to succeed at something, whether it was back in my sales days, my sales leadership days, or as a technical instructor, that in order to become the best there is, I had to first become the best I was capable of becoming. And that's our focus today. This blueprint is to show you, to give you a path, a roadmap that you can follow to help you become the very best you're capable of becoming. Now, this isn't a magic wand. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. All right? To become your best takes work. It takes effort and it takes decision. You have to decide this is what you want. So I'm going to give you the roadmap and hopefully you'll decide that you want to go down this road and your focus is going to become your absolute best and you'll be amazed to see what follows. So my mission, and it always has been, is to impact people's lives, to make a difference. That's why I do what I do. I love making a difference. Even back when I was teaching computer networking, one of the coolest things about it was the fact that there were so many students who came in who were changing careers, who were trying to improve their lives, create a better life for themselves and their families. And when they got their MCSE, for example, their CCNA, they had to do the work, no doubt. But it always made me feel good to know that I had a small part in that. You know, I got to contribute to their success and to the new life that they are now going to be able to achieve. And that was a really cool thing. And that's my goal here today too. I'd like to think that when we're done here today, that I've imparted on you information that's going to help you improve your life, help you move further in whatever direction you want to go. This is a quote that I came up with. I didn't mean to come up with a quote. This is just what I would repeatedly say to my students over the years, and I finally decided to write it down. But I say this all the time, and I live by it myself. Success is not an accident. It's a choice. The very first thing that has to happen in order for you to succeed at anything, for you to become your very best, and hopefully one of the best, is you have to decide that's what you want. Michael Jordan didn't accidentally become one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He decided he wanted to become the very best he was capable of, and that led him to becoming one of the best there's ever been. But he had to make that decision. He had to put in the time, work, and effort to make that happen. The very first step is to decide this is what you want. So again, nobody succeeds accidentally. You may win the lottery accidentally, but even then you got to buy a ticket. But you're not going to succeed accidentally. You're going to have to decide this is what you want. So the focus is what I call the 5 core steps. So where this comes from real quickly is that over the years, especially back in my sales days and in my sales leadership days, I'm a math person at heart. Though I love people and I love teaching, my mind works like math. And so one of the strengths I've always had is to recognize patterns. And so I was always self-reflective. When I had a sale, whether I closed a sale or didn't, I would reflect on what happened and what could I have done better. Even when I closed it, I thought, what could I do better? Now, believe me, I wasn't beating myself up. I was thrilled that I had the sale, but I know that there's always things I could have done better. And what I found was when I did really well, there were certain things that I did consistently. And when things didn't go so well, I wasn't doing those things. I used to, in my sales days, get into a slump. Every salesperson does. And I'd go, for example, a couple of weeks without closing a single sale. I mean, I couldn't beg somebody to buy from me. And every time I finally came to the realization after I got done banging my head against the wall for 2 weeks, that the problem was I needed to go back to the beginning, back to the basics, back to these 5 core steps. So that's why this is what I teach, because I know that every time I've succeeded at a really high level, and by the way, this presentation isn't about being good at something. It's not even about being really good at something. It's about being your absolute best at something. I believe that's what we're here for, to be our best. So every time I strive to be my best and I succeeded, I realized I did these 5 things. And when I didn't succeed as I wanted to, I realized I didn't do these 5 things. And I saw this pattern and I could repeat it over and over again. And then I was able to teach it over and over again. And my students, my clients began to get the same results when they followed it. So I know from personal experience, both for myself and the people that I've taught over the years, that this works, right? This works. I've been using it for over 20 years now. So here are the 5 steps. Attitude, responsibility, goal setting, what I call the 3 pillars, and perseverance. These 5 steps, if you master these 5 steps, it will almost be impossible for you to fail. Almost impossible to fail. You will succeed at levels you didn't even know were possible, but you need to master these 5 steps. And like I said, this isn't a magic wand. This is going to take work, all right? But if you're willing to put in the work, time, and energy in, you will be amazed at the results that you get. All right, so let's take a look at this. So the first one is attitude. Now, I have to tell you, this is when I teach this, it's usually pretty much an all-day thing. So we're going to take a lot of information and bring it down to obviously a shorter time period. So I'm going to condense this down. But nonetheless, if you want to learn more about this, at the end, I'll show you how you can do that. So first one is attitude. So I'm going to break this down into 2 pieces. The first piece is what we've already talked about. The attitude must be that I want to become the very best I'm capable of becoming. If you want to succeed at a really high level, again, not just be good, not just be really good, but to be absolutely incredible at something, to be one of the best, you have to decide that you are going to become your absolute best. Remember that slide earlier. You can't become the best until you first become your best. So you have to make that decision. You have to decide that you want to become your absolute best. I talk a lot when I do this training about New Year's resolutions. Most people think New Year's resolutions are lousy, they don't work, blah, 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 blah. They work. They work. The reason they don't work is because the vast majority of people who set New Year's resolutions wish and hope they come true. They don't decide that they're going to happen. They don't decide they're going to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year. They don't decide that they're going to double their income. They don't decide because that takes commitment. You're committing to this now. And most people don't want to do that. But if you want to succeed at a really high level, you have to commit to becoming your absolute best at whatever it is that you want to focus on. The second piece to this, I feel more like a parent talking to their child when I talk about this, because it's kind of the advice that a parent hopefully would give. And that is this. You have to know what it is you want out of life. All right. You don't want to drift. This is coming from personal experience because I didn't get this advice. And I did spend most of my career drifting from job to job. Wherever opportunity presented itself, I went, okay. And even though every time I start a new opportunity, I climb to the top. Every time I start a new opportunity, I had to start at the bottom. How far can you go when every time you change opportunities, you have to start from the bottom? Because I didn't plan out my life. I didn't take the time and energy it takes to decide, what do I want? What gets me excited? What am I good at? What do I want to be good at? And actually decide where I want my life to go. If you get one thing out of this today, that is this. Sit down, take some quiet time with yourself, and decide who you want to be and what you want to become and where you want your career to go. Be able to answer the question, where do I want to be 5 years from now? Where do I want to be 10 years from now? For the longest time, I was on commission. I got paid weekly. I could barely see the next week. All I saw was the next paycheck. Now, finally, I mean, it's been a few years now, but I finally can see what I'm doing 10 and 15 years from now. I know what I'm going to be doing. And that's going to make it so much easier for me to make it happen because I know exactly what I want. So again, with attitude, the two biggest pieces of advice I can give you are decide where you want to go with your life. Who do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? And then make the decision that whatever that is, that you're going at it at 100%, that you are going to become the very best that you're capable of becoming and nothing less. This is my favorite quote. It's in Mel. There is no passion to be found in playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. How much fun is there in showing up for work, leaving at the end of the day, going home and watching Netflix for 3 or 4 hours? There's no passion in that. Sure, you may be okay with it, but you can't tell me that your life is exciting and that you love getting up in the morning because of what you're about to accomplish that day. That's not the case. The passion comes when you're doing something you love and you give 100% to it and you're really getting good at it. This is where the passion comes in. Anytime that you're performing at your absolute best, it's a high. The passion is there. Just going through life, just sort of showing up, it's not. It's no way to live. Decide what you want and decide you're going to give it 100%. And you'll find that passion will grow. And again, the results will be amazing. All right, second one is responsibility. So people don't like to talk about this one because it's no fun. But the simple fact is you need to take 100% responsibility for your life, for your decisions, and for your thoughts. All right, 100% responsibility. Now, when I teach something, it always has a practical reason. Very, very seldom do I teach something that doesn't have some practical purpose to it. So this one is no exception. Though it's great advice, again, that parents might give their children when they grow up, or grandparents would give their grandchildren, just the way to live your life to be a good person, there's a really practical application here. And the practical application is this. We as human beings learn far more from our mistakes than we do from our successes, far more. All right, back in the early days of man, saber-toothed tigers and the like, we were by far not the biggest, not the most powerful, not the fastest. And yet we're here, and some of the others are not. And that's because we as human beings have the ability to make mistakes and learn from them and grow and not make that mistake again and improve on ourselves and manage to continue to thrive. That's the key. If you want to become the former, I can't remember his name now and I apologize for that, but the former CEO of HP once said, if you want to succeed faster, fail faster. Make the mistakes, figure out what went wrong, fix them. The sooner you do that, the quicker you're going to succeed. The key to success, or one of the big keys to success, is accepting that failure is an absolute mandatory part of success, but only if you're willing to own that failure. If you want to blame anything and everybody else, you want to blame the government, you want to blame the economy. Do you know how many millionaires became millionaires during the last recession in 2008? And how many new millionaires will be born this year out of this pandemic? Take responsibility. Do not blame the government, the economy, the weather, the dog down the street. Take responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, for your actions, because that's what you got control over. And if you do that, when you make a mistake, you own it. All right, now, what went wrong? What can I do to fix this? So the next time I do better. And the time after that, I do better than that. I didn't become the top salesperson everywhere I worked accidentally. I reflected, as I mentioned earlier, over every sale. And I learned from every single opportunity, whether I closed that sale or didn't. I learned something from it and grew from the opportunity. And that's what got me to the top. So again, you must take 100% responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, for your actions. Own your mistakes so that you can learn from them and grow. That's how we as human beings succeed. Where you are in your life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. There are two words that you hear used sometimes interchangeably, but not in technical settings. The words are react and respond. You'll hear doctors, for example, say that if they give medication to somebody and it doesn't work, they'll say the body reacted badly to the medication. But if the medication works, they'll say the body responded favorably to the medication. Reacted badly, responded favorably. When we react to a situation, we're usually taking the easy way out. So if my big weakness was traffic. I hated traffic. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time and I hate traffic. I have no patience for it whatsoever. And I would just go nuts. I'd start screaming at the idiot in front of me who did something stupid. And the only person who heard it was me. Or if I'm with my wife, she gets to hear it. I would react to the situation. It took me a little while to learn to respond to it instead, to take a second, to take a breath. And then I'd either start a conversation with my wife, maybe about a vacation we want to take, or if I was by myself, I'd turn on the radio or turn on an audiobook. Look at that. Use my time in traffic as something positive. But it took me a while to learn that I needed to respond to the situation, not react to it. And there are people who come up to me every time I do a presentation, right, and say to me, Rory, there are just times that, for example, my spouse she just knows how to push my buttons and I just react. Wrong. You don't just react. All right. Viktor Frankl said that in between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response is our strength and our growth. I know as somebody who reacts in traffic, right? I know there's that split second I can decide not to. And back in the day, I didn't make that decision. I just went with it and reacted. Now, I give myself a second and I choose to respond instead of react. Same thing with my wife, right? She knows how to push my buttons. And if I want to get in a major fight, I can do that by reacting to what she says. Or I can choose to respond instead. And the same with her. And that's how our relation works so well. We both choose not to react most of the time. We choose to respond instead. The third one is goals. And I know you guys have all heard this many times. You got to set goals. You got to set goals. You got to set goals. Guys, you got to set goals. Our brains are like a heat-seeking missile. When it knows exactly where it needs to go, it functions amazingly well. But it has to know what the target is. You have in your brain what is called a reticular activating system. And what it basically does is this. Let me give you an example how it works. For those of you who have ever bought a car, and for you ladies, and I'm not saying you ladies don't buy cars, but there's a specific example for you, when you buy a new dress, okay? And then the first time you drive off the lot with that car, or you go to an event with that new dress, and it seems like everybody has your car, the make, the model, the color, and everybody's wearing the same dress. Did they just all go out and buy it at the same time you did? No. But because you spent so much energy on deciding the car or deciding the dress and making the purchase, you are teaching your reticular activating system that this is something that's important to you. And so now your brain knows to pay attention to that thing. Okay? If it wasn't for the reticular activating system, every time you heard anything, felt the wind blowing, anything that hit your senses, you would immediately give it 100% of your attention. And that would drive you nuts. You would go crazy. But the reticular activating system learns what's important to you and then focuses on that. So this is a hypothetical example. But back in the day when we could be in restaurants with each other, you could be sitting at a table in a restaurant and there's conversations going on all around you. And 99% of the time, we completely ignore them. We're in our own little world at that table with whoever we're with, or our own thoughts if we're by ourselves. But if you're focusing on a goal, you've got something you want to accomplish, and somebody at the table next to you mentions something that's in alignment with that goal you're after, your reticular activation system is going to go, hey, pay attention to this. This is for you. Listen to this. And you might hear that conversation. And it might cause you to get up and walk over to them and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, and I couldn't help but overhear what you're saying. And maybe they have something, some information, some guidance they can give you that will help you attain your goal. But without the reticular activation system, that wouldn't help it happen. And without you focusing on your goal, that wouldn't happen. So when I teach people how to set goals, I break it up into 4 pieces. The first piece is back to the beginning. Decide exactly what you want. So for example, if I want to be a lawyer, well, let's reverse engineer that. To be a lawyer, I've got to pass the bar. To pass the bar, I've got to first pass law school. To pass law school, I've got to get into law school. To get into law school, I've got to have good grades, really good grades. So if I'm about to begin university, I might decide that when I come out of the general course here, that I'm going to have a 4.0 average, right? Whether it's a 2-year, 3-year program, whatever it is, when I'm done, when I'm ready to apply for law school, I will have a 4.0 average. I will know exactly what I want. You need to know exactly what it is. It needs to be 2 things, specific and measurable. So for example, if you say to me that I want to make more money, I'll hand you a buck and say, congratulations. I'm pretty confident that isn't what you had in mind. But if you say to yourself, I want to earn $20,000 more a year this year than I did last year, that is both specific and measurable. At the end of this year, we can pull up your W-2 or take a look at your pay stubs, and we can very easily figure out whether you made more $20,000 or more this year than you did last year. If your goal is, I want to lose weight, no, not good enough. I want to weigh 175 pounds at the end of this year. Again, it's very specific and it's very measurable. I can stand there with you when you get on the scale on December 31st and you either weigh 175 or less or you don't, right? It is very measurable. So it's very important that the goal you set is as specific as you can make it. Second, you want to write your goals down. And when I say write them down, I actually don't mean on a computer, type it on a computer. I mean literally put it in a journal, for example, right? There's some kind of magic that happens when you take something from your brain and it comes out your hand onto a pencil, onto a piece of paper. Brian Tracy said that a goal that's not in writing is just a wish. There have been many studies, one of them out of Dominican University, if you want to look it up, that showed that whenever people wrote their goals down, they far outperformed those that just had the goals in their head. Now, how often should you write the goal down? It depends how badly you want the goal. I would recommend that you write the goal down at least once a week, right? More if you'd like, but at least once a week. Keeping that process of writing and keeping it in focus. Write your goals down. Next, read your goals every day. But Rory, why do I need to read them every day? Remember we were talking about the reticular activation system and the focus? This is where the focus comes. If you read your goals every day, you are keeping top of mind. You are keeping focus. And that's what kicks in the reticular activation system. And that's what allows your mind to help you find the people, places, and things that will help you achieve your goal. The more focused you are, the higher the probability you'll achieve your goal. And focus comes, one method that focus comes is from writing your goals down and reading them every day. That's what it's for. The reading is for the focus so that your mind knows exactly what you want and how important it is to you because you're telling it every day, this is what we're striving for. Help me make this happen. Reading your goals is paramount to success. There is a story that I read that I can't remember who told the story now, but the story was that Bill Gates had and it's appropriate for you guys, actually, Bill Gates. So Bill Gates had a dinner party and his father was there and Warren Buffett was there. And the three of them were at a table during the dinner party. And somebody came up to them and apologized for interrupting, but said, you are three of the most influential people in the world. What is the one thing that you would attribute to your success? And they all three thought about it for a second. And according to the story, in unison, the three of them said, focus. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. All right. So again, read your goals every day. And last, take action towards your goal every day. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small, but take some kind of action towards your goals every day. The purpose of this is momentum. We all know that, but Dale Carnegie had a quote that said, inaction breeds fear and doubt. Action breeds confidence and courage. By taking action, you're telling yourself, even when it's small action done over and over and over again, it tells you you can do this. And the more action you take, the more days you take action, the stronger that belief will become. It's momentum. It's like one of those huge railroad trains, right? These things that weigh a ton. It takes a lot to get them moving. But once they are up to speed, they are almost impossible to stop. And that's what you will be. If you take action every day towards your goal, every day, even if it's just something small, that continual motion forward of taking those actions will build on themselves. And the next thing you know, you will become unstoppable. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Jack Canfield. He's the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And there's been chicken soup for every soul you can imagine. The mother's soul, the father's soul, the coach's soul, the basketball player's soul, the cat lover's soul, the dog lover's soul, the college soul. He and Mark Victor Hansen, the other co-author, have sold over 500 million Chicken Soup for the Something books. Over 500 million. When it first started, their goal was to become a New York Times best-selling book. That was their goal. And they made a decision. Their decision was they were going to do what they called the rule of 5. And that means that they were going to take 5 actions every single day, 7 days a week towards the attainment of that goal. Maybe that meant reaching out to 5 people who might buy the book or 5 organizations they could promote the book to. But every day they took 5 actions toward the achievement of their goal. And again, as I said, they've only sold about 500 million books. So, I don't know if this really works or not. All right. So those are the 4 ways, the 4 steps that I teach setting goals. I say this without a moment of hesitation. Setting goals works. It is paramount to your success. Your brain has to know, where do you want to go? Which of course means you have to know, where do you want to go? All right, so up to now, it's been about kind of the process of knowing what you want and thinking about what you want. Now it's time to actually get it done. So when I was in sales, when I was in sales leadership, when I became a technical trainer, and my goal was to become the best I was capable of becoming, the best salesperson, the best sales leader, the best trainer I could possibly be. Once I knew exactly what I wanted, I set the goals, and I was taking action, this was the action that I took. The 3 pillars is what I realized I did every time in order to take the action steps necessary to achieve my goal. So here are the 3 pillars. The first one is skill. So ask yourself, what skill do I need to learn and master? Or what skill do I need to simply master that I just haven't so far in order to achieve my goal? What skill? So if I'm in sales, when I was in sales, I needed to become the absolute best salesperson I was capable of becoming. And the first step towards that is mastering my skill. So I would read books on sales. I would listen to audio tapes on sales leaders like a Brian Tracy or a Zig Ziglar. My goal was to master my skills. Now, I have to know what those skills are, as do you. You have to know what skills you have to master to become the best at whatever it is you want to accomplish. So when I was in sales, I knew that I had to learn how to greet people because I was in mostly inside sales. So how do I approach somebody? How do I ask them questions that I need to know the answer to in order to do my job without sounding like I'm grilling them? How do I explain the features and benefits so they realize what an amazing piece of equipment or service this is? How do I close the sale? And how do I answer objections? I needed to master each one of those skills in order to become the very best I was capable of becoming. And so my focus became to do exactly that. I would watch other salespeople, not only for what they did that I loved, but for what they did that I didn't like. I would, again, listen to audio tapes, et cetera, et cetera. All right. I went and did what needed to be done to master my skill. The second was knowledge. When I was a technical instructor, quick story, technical instructor, I used to teach, office stuff and stuff like that. And then I was offered a job as a technical instructor. So they had to get me certified. I had to take the courses, pass the exams, et cetera. Right. So I've now been a technical instructor for about 6 months and everything's going really well. Students seem to really like me. My boss is really pleased with my performance. I'm having a great time learning a lot, working hard, really hard, but learning a lot. And I was loving it. So I am just thrilled with how things are going until one day. One day after the end of my class, all right, and we always gave surveys at the end of the class. So after I got done getting my surveys back and looking them over, I walked next door to one of my buddies where he was teaching, and he was done his class as well. And so I sat down at his desk and I started, while we were chit-chatting, I started thumbing through his surveys. And then I saw it. There's a survey that said the instructor was very knowledgeable. And I continued thumbing through. There were 2 or 3 others that said the same thing. I had never seen that. I've been told that I'm fun. I've been told that I'm entertaining. I even told twice I had a nice butt, seriously. But nobody ever said that the instructor was very knowledgeable. Now, I have a belief that says to me, if somebody else is capable of doing something, I'm capable of doing it as well. But apparently I wasn't. Now, remember we're talking about taking responsibility, right? Reacting versus responding. I could have reacted very badly. I could have said, yeah, he's just lucky. Or my course is so much more difficult than his. Or this doesn't matter, big deal. That would have been reacting. Instead, I chose to respond. And I remember what went through my head. I said to myself, obviously, I'm not performing at my best. And I need to fix this. I realized the reason I hadn't got these, because if I believe that my buddy can get them, I can get them too, and I wasn't, then there's a reason why I wasn't. And the reason was me. And so I then did what I needed to do in order to attain that goal. And that's exactly what I did. At that time, I only had my MCSE. I then went and got my CCNA. Back in the Novell days, I got my CNA as well, and a couple CompTIA certifications. And what do you think started happening? Now I knew so much more than the courseware. And I was able to direct the students where the course said this. I could say things like, okay, I know the book says this, but this is kind of how it really works. I started getting the same responses. The instructor was very knowledgeable. Not only that, but in my first full year as a technical instructor, the students voted me Instructor of the Year. And my second and my third. I had to make the decision that I was going to become one of the subject matter experts in my area. I didn't choose to say it wasn't important. It didn't matter. He was just lucky. I chose to do what I needed to do in order to become a subject matter expert. If you're going to succeed, not only do you have to have the skills, but you have to have the knowledge as well. So what do you need to become a subject matter in order to become the very best you're capable of becoming in whatever it is that you're choosing? Last, mindset. Simply put, and you may have heard this term before, you need to develop what's called the servant mindset, which means that no matter what you do, you are always offering more value than you expect to receive. When I was in sales, right, I next to never, I won't say never, but I next to never, when I was working with a customer, thought about how much money I was going to make, right? Next to never. I think the only time I did is when I knew this customer was basically a slam dunk, right? Then I might entertain what I'm going to make. But 90% of the time, I did not think about how much money I was going to make. I thought about how I was going to do my job to the best of my ability. And that wasn't because I'm such a wonderful person. I am, but that was the reason. Remember what I said to you earlier. I do everything for a practical reason. I knew that if I offered more value to this customer than they ever expected, if I did my job to the best of my ability and took care of that customer, that I'd make money. I knew it. I knew in my heart, I knew in my head that if I did my best, the money would follow. And it did. So where other salesperson were thinking about how they can maximize the dollars they made off this customer, I thought about how can I do my best for this customer? And again, I am a nice guy, but that wasn't the reason I did it. I did it because I knew that if I always offered more value, if I always took care of my customer, that I would always come out, be fine. I'd always make the money. And that was always the case. So whatever you do in relating to your spouse, relating to your children, your friends, the people you work with, always offer more value than you expect to receive. And believe me, in the end, you'll receive more value than you ever expected. So these are the 3 pillars. If you master your skill set, if you do whatever you have to do to learn to be really good at what you do, what skills do you need to master? If you become one of the subject matter experts in your field, and if you always offer more value you expect to receive, this is how you get it done. This is how you take your goal and make it happen. The last of the 5 pillars, I consider attitude to be the absolute first, number one, most important. But I'm actually thinking that when I develop this course for this that I'm going to develop in January, that I might make this one number one, make it the first pillar. And here's why. I don't want any of my students when I teach this course to drop out before the course is done. So many people buy courses and they don't ever finish them. They pay for them, they don't finish them. Here's a simple fact. You could do to the best of your ability these first 4 steps, right? You could master these first 4 steps, nail them, do them exceptionally well. But if you quit before you achieve your goal, you get nothing. Done. Have the right attitude, take responsibility, learn my skills, do everything I need to do. But when an obstacle gets in my way, a roadblock gets in my way, and I just go, yeah, I don't think so, and I quit, it was all for nothing. Let me ask you a really dumb question. If you decide this weekend to run a marathon, so let's say there's some marathon in your community this weekend. You're going to run this 26.2 mile marathon, and you've never run a marathon before, but you're going to run this marathon. What is the one and only thing that will stop you from crossing the finish line? Just one. And I imagine most of you have already thought it. If you quit, if you don't quit, you will cross the finish line. But if you quit, you won't. That is the only thing. Martin Luther King said, and I'm going to paraphrase this to make it suit my purposes. He said, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. That's what perseverance is. Despite the challenges, despite the roadblocks, despite the hurdles, you keep moving forward. Because that is the only way you are going to achieve your goal. Because if you quit, you don't. No matter what happens along the way, you will never fail unless you quit. As long as you keep moving forward, you will never fail. So perseverance, though it won't be isn't what I consider the absolute first one, because attitude is everything. But the bottom line is, if you quit, you get nothing, right? The key is you have to persevere right to the very end. This is another one of my favorite quotes. And this is John D. Rockefeller. And for those of you who are pretty young, John D. Rockefeller, back in the early part of the 1900s, was one of the richest men in the world, right? In the world. And he said, I do not think that there is any other quality so essential to success of any kind as the quality of perseverance. Not quitting when the going gets tough. Every time you get knocked down, you get back up. You could be less than stellar in the first four of these core steps. But if you don't quit, I'll give you a quick story. There is a Kenyan runner who was in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Kenya doesn't have many mountains. Mexico City is at a really high elevation. So he goes in the 1968 Olympics in Kenya and he's running the marathon. He's running the marathon in the Olympics. So about halfway through the marathon, his legs start cramping. Because again, his muscles are not used to running at this altitude. But he keeps going. He doesn't stop. And that's not the worst of it. About 3/4 of the way through the race, he gets in a scuffle with a bunch of other runners who are jockeying for position. He gets knocked to the ground. He crashes on his shoulder and bangs up and dislocates his knee. This is a marathon. Now, everybody expected who saw this happen that he was going to get up and he was going to get his way to a hospital and get it taken care of. Instead, he had it looked at right then and there, had it bandaged up, and then he kept going. He crossed the finish line an hour after the winner of the marathon, but he crossed the finish line. A bunch of reporters that were still around ran over to them and he asked them, why did you keep running? Why didn't you go to the hospital and get this taken care of? My country didn't send me 5,000 miles to start a race. My country sent me 5,000 miles to finish the race. It's all about being a finisher. Perseverance is everything, because if you quit, you lose. If you don't, you win. So those are the 5 core steps. If you master these 5 core steps, you become the very best you're capable of every one of these steps. It is almost impossible for you to fail. It's literally almost impossible. You will have to succeed. And when your goal is to become the best you're capable of becoming, if you master these 5 core steps, you will probably become one of the best. And the reason is not so much because of anything other than most people won't. Most people won't put out the effort that is necessary to follow these steps. They're not easy. This is not a magic wand. This, as you can tell, this is going to require work. And most people aren't willing to put in the work. But if you're willing to do this, then you will succeed beyond what your imagination can take you to. You will be amazed. There are things I've accomplished that I didn't even dream I could accomplish. And I dreamed pretty big. It went beyond what I thought was possible, simply because I followed these 5 core steps. And again, when I didn't succeed at something, I could look back at this and know I didn't follow these steps. And as much as I teach this, I'm human. I don't do this every time. All right. But when I finally decide it's time, I follow these steps and I succeed. All right. So as I was mentioned at the very beginning, as I talked about at the beginning of this thing, I love making a difference in people's lives. I love having an impact. I like believing that I contributed to your success in some way. And so I've been thinking a lot about how I can do that even further. And one of the things I discovered, and because I joined a membership, I didn't even know what they were, but I was taught about one, and I decided I was going to join it. And I realized as I'm going through this membership that I could do the same thing. This would be something that I could really use to help people become their absolute best. So I am going to open up a membership. I'm going to open the enrollment for it in September, on September 28th. Okay. Now, this is anyone who enrolls in this first iteration of this will be what we call a founding member. A founding member are basically the first people who enroll in something. And the reason you're a founding member for me is because as much as I have a pretty good idea how this is going to lay out, I don't know everything that you want to learn. So I'm going to be asking my founding members for feedback all the time. How this went, how that went. Is there something that I've taught that I could have explained a little bit better? Are there things that you want to learn that I'm not talking about? I want them to help me tweak this so it becomes the best membership site on the internet. Now, to do this and to get this help, I'm going to offer an incentive. And the incentive is that I am going to offer a monthly rate or yearly rate, depending how you want to pay for this membership that is almost half of what it will be when I let it out to everybody else. It's almost half. And it will never go up. You will always have that rate. As long as you're a member in good standing, yours will never go up. And I plan a year from now to have the monthly fee be about twice as much as it is now. But in order to get the help to streamline this and make it the best it could be, I'm going to elicit the help of my founding members. And so I want to reward them for that. So again, you will get a phenomenal deal. And as I'm raising the rates to everybody else, yours will stay exactly the same. So if this is something that you're interested in, it's going to be limited to 25 founding members because I want to make it a small group so I can have a lot of intimate conversations and communication with you. So if this is something you're interested in that you'd like to be a part of, or you want to join the wait list and make sure that you are one of the 25, or if you just like more information, you want to hear a little bit more from me about it, feel free to reach out to me, send me an email at rory@rorypeters.com. And I'll be glad to put you on my wait list or give you whatever information that you need to help you make the right decision for you. All right, that is it. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. And I think we've got possibly some questions that we might be answering.
Absolutely, Rory. Thank you so much. The best part of it was inspiring as well as it was entertaining. And, it had both sides. When you hear some quotes and how to apply it in real life, that makes it makes you motivated, that makes you inspire or to want more.
Thank you.
Sit back and think that, yes, what are the things we can make it better. Very positive. Thank you so much, Rory. Yes, if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Oh, we have many new names here. Anish Kothapalli, if you can unmute and just let us know, maybe comments, maybe feedback, question. I see Ramesh, Shrikar. Nagendra, yes, please go ahead. Raj.
Hey, Rory, this is Nagendra.
Hi.
Hi. I would like to just thank you because when I was going through your presentation, simultaneously I was looking for one of the lead for a topic called blockchain, which I have discussed with my mentor 10 minutes before the meeting. And I got the lead and I'm very happy for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad this was beneficial for you. That's great. And the key is to apply it, right? Key is to apply it.
Yeah, Raj, we can't hear you. I think you're talking something, but we can't hear you, Raj. Something went wrong.
He maybe didn't have a question. Maybe it was just a statement.
Eh,
The timing of it.
no,
Because it's
that was Nagendra actually. But if Raj is our, faithful, and he will join most all the webinars, and he will have a question for sure. So
gotcha.
I hear that weird sound that happened another day, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's talking, but I can't hear.
Gotcha. Yeah, that tinny sound that we hear.
Yes, that's. Yeah. Raj, if you want to log out and log in, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, Rory, thank you so much. It was very inspiring. Definitely, I think actions are what make all such thoughts very productive. So thank you so much for sharing the good things.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Srini. I see Giri here. You want to unmute, and I see two Ramesh. Yes, Sri Lakshmi, you have any feedback, comments?
Hi, Rory. Yeah, it was really like as Justine said, like it's really inspiring. But like I have one. I don't know, is it a question or something like that? I It's hard, like at the beginning, to start to tell someone, like as I'm thinking on perspective of my kids, actually. Okay, it's hard to like push them or say and make them understand. I know, like all this, if we apply it, is really a good thing. In action, if we see in action, it's really great. But how can we, at the beginning, at the start, how can we do that? Like how long does it take, or like how could we
You mean
do that?
motivate?
Yes, exactly.
So were you talking for yourself or for a team?
For
um, Team.
kids in
Yeah,
particular is what.
yeah, team.
Well, okay, so the length of time will depend on what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so for example, when I ran a computer division for a Fortune 100 company in Los Angeles, retail computer division, and I had 12 managers that reported to me. And at the beginning, when we started this up, they didn't know me from a hole in the wall, right? They had no idea who I was. I gave them my history. I told them my vision of what I wanted us to accomplish and that, I thought we could do, et cetera. And it took 6 months before
Okay.
they finally began to realize that I was who I said I was, and that I was capable of doing what I said I was capable of doing, and that I really wanted them to succeed. That it wasn't about me, it was about them. All right, that's the key. Remember that servant attitude, that it was about them. I wanted them to succeed. Again, I'm no idiot. I know if they succeed at a really high level, I'm going to look good. So, there was both. I wanted them to succeed because I love helping people. But I also knew I would succeed as well. But that one took about 6 months. Other goals that I've set took a matter of a few weeks. So it depends how big the goal is, right? Some goals are bigger than others and they'll take longer than others. Some things, and it's always good if you can take a goal and break it into smaller pieces so you can get small wins. So for example, when I got my MCSE, right, back when I did it, there were 6 exams and they were like nightmare of exams. I didn't focus on having to pass 6 exams because that would have been daunting. I just knew that I needed to get my MCSE, and the first thing I needed to do was pass the next exam. That was it. And after I passed the first one, my goal was simply not to pass 5 more. It was to pass the next exam. And that gave me little wins along the way.
Okay. Breaking up the goals is also in that way. Okay. Good.
Yeah, that will help. If you can break it down to smaller bite sizes, that makes it easy to get small wins.
Okay. Thank you
Remember
so
that
much.
momentum, right? Building that momentum.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Sri.
thank you.
Yeah. One question. Does anybody have any other question? Or else, one question just came popped in my head that did anything like once you have started this career and you have started motivating people and asking for their peak performance, so something which stood out, like that surprised you, like yes, this was the previous thing and this is how the performance changed, some real time experience if you can share.
Oh, when I started doing this, I think when I first started doing it, one of the things that I found is that my first thing was working with salespeople when I first started, because that was, where I had some real proven expertise. And what it was is I was set up to work with salespeople for about a 6-month period. And it was really interesting how quickly some of them took to what I said. Because salespeople, as a rule, don't have great habits. They tend to, I'll be honest with you, most salespeople, and I did it for like about 10 years, are lazy. All right. But what ended up happening was when I was able to show them a better future and give them steps to follow, some of them didn't. Some of them just couldn't care less. But there was this handful of them that decided that this is something they wanted. And then to see the change in the way they showed up and in the results they got. One of them just blew through everybody else as far as sales. He went from being in the middle of the pack to being their number one salesperson for like the time that I was working with him, like 3 months in a row. And he came out of nowhere, but he started implementing what he was being taught, and he took it to heart. So I began to realize that there really was, it was one thing that I could do this, but it was another that I could teach this and other people could learn this and they could make these changes as well. It was quite an interesting experience.
Wow, this is like, something happens in reality and that motivates you also, I guess, the biggest motivation of what you do. Yeah.
I'll tell you real quick. One of the things that when I learned I could actually teach, right? I always thought I could, but when I actually learned I could teach, the very first time I actually was teaching as a career, I started doing software training and I was a consultant, and we were teaching social workers here in Los Angeles. And so I would teach Windows and Word, introduction to Windows, introduction to Word over and over and over again. And these social workers would come in and they would, all the social workers in Los Angeles would all take turns coming to these classes. And one day the social worker came in and I introduced myself to her and she said, "So you're Rory. I was told I needed to get your class." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you very much. I love you." It was a nice feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think then just a quick before we conclude, let's have this. Like we'll have our Let Us Talk It Youth series tomorrow. Just a reminder for all the attendees who have joined that we have this every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST by the youths for the youths. So this webinar is totally for the youths and by the youths. And tomorrow our topic is, what if I have to do high school again? A small journey into time machine, lessons learned that won't be repeated during high school. If we got another chance to do high school, so the kids are all geared up to give a wonderful presentation. So if you are a parent or a youth who wants to join these webinars, practice and learn more about communication, how to present and things like that, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com, or you can email me directly as well. And with that, we conclude this session. We have this webinar every Tuesday, professional webinar every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And on Fridays, the youth webinar again from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And thank you everyone for joining in, and have a wonderful rest of the day. And thank you, Rory, so much for your time and your wonderful presentation.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.